Off. Hello, welcome to the Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob. Welcome to a lovely Sunday evening with my three very special guests here to talk about the 40k WTC event that is Greekhammer. If you guys have been tuning in, this is our 6th week. It's very exciting. Loads to go. Tom is here as always, as is Neil, and we have a very special guest today, Tony Chu. Neil, can you introduce our very special guest, please?
Tony, what can we say about Tony? Nicknamed Chewy. He is the current Team England WTC captain. And apart from being probably the most horrific person to play against in 40k because he only ever runs Storm Ravens over Flying Jank, he's also genuinely one of the nicest blokes in competitive 40k. You know, he always has a smile on his face. He's always a pleasure to be around. And he's always the kind of guy that will clap you on the shoulder after his Storm Ravens have raped you and say, "Don't worry, buddy. Better luck next time."
And vice versa. I get my ass kicked quite a few times. You just don't make a big deal of that, Neil. But thank you very much.
Tony, it's lovely to have you on the show. How are you doing? You doing well?
Yeah, not too bad. As we were just talking about before we started, real events that they're almost there, aren't they? Touching distance. So I'm starting to build my massive haul of stuff that I've just been collecting for what feels like forever. But I've yet to paint anything. I'm waiting to see the meta sells.
So do we get some sort of view into what you're building towards? Is it Marines?
Let's see. I sunk a load of cash into a giant G-Steel occult army. Ooh. Yeah, that was good. So I'm just holding on to them.
You're not the only one to do that, mate. I know.
No, it's okay. And then I'm still building up my Craft World Eldar, and I'm making them work against all the expectations on TTS events at the moment. Marines. I think there's lots of there's so much play in Marines depending on what flavour of chapter you go with. But I don't know where singles events are going to go in terms of win-loss. Like, are they going to go the old ICCC style of it's going to be win a game, margin of victory doesn't matter, or is it going to be the WTC style 20-point scoring scale? So how you build a list, where these things go, it's kind of all up in the air. So I'd be lying if I didn't say I was building some Vanguard veterans just to be on the safe side, just to have a rainy day. But
Team England. As the captain of Team England have got to be, it's the home of Games Workshop, therefore I argue the home of Warhammer as well. Do you feel like added pressure in some ways to represent England in that way, or does that not really factor into it?
We came into the Greekhammer event as a nice friendly practice event, and we brought, I think, first couple of rounds we brought some lists that probably weren't as tailored as they could be, and I think people were chomping at the bit to play us. And we tweaked them for the next couple of rounds, but we're still testing stuff. And I think from our side of it, no, probably not. But I can imagine that there's a big target on our head that people will go away and say, "Oh, we beat you in that round," or we didn't do very well. Do you know what I mean? So it's a really interesting place to be in. I find the TTS format really useful for practice and really good way to get people to play outside their comfort zone and to meet new players. But I'm waiting to see what it'll be like when we get all the players I've been, TTS play testing for months back in the real world on real tables, trying real armies, because it just feels such a different experience when you play online than when you play the game in real life. I don't know if you could say we're defending champions anymore, because it's going to be the inaugural WTC when we eventually get there, isn't it, Neil? So.
There's a graphic on the website that says differently, mate. So it counts.
But I think everyone would still count it as, you know, I mean, the 40k part of the ETC was its own thing for such a long time anyway. Yeah. It's just going to carry on. You know, we're already talking about trying to get a shield. We're already talking about we'll get a shield sorted or trophy sorted, get all the previous winners' names engraved on. So right away back from 2007. So everyone's names will be on there already. So I'll make it cool.
I mean, if you want to put us on there as the longest rating champions, I'll chip in for a couple of extra shields just for 2019, 2021.
Didn't the Germans win it? Wasn't the Germans the Poles that won it like 3 years or 4 years in a row?
I mean, we can count the years, but there's been no event. That's definitely just the title retention.
Even then, you're not doing it. But should we get on to the elephant in the room then, since we're talking about the WTC?
Let's do it, Neil. Let's do it. It's being held in where they hold the UFC now, on an island.
Yes. The WTC is being cancelled for this year. No surprises to anyone, obviously.
Postponed.
It'll be running in Australia, but it'll be 2022. No surprises. Vaccines aren't happening. Situations are better. And you can't run an international event with people coming from 20, 30 different countries. to play 40k for a week and stay safe. So very sad, very upset. Have to wait another year before we can get together and do this thing.
Yeah, that's super tough, and but the right decision and the smart decision ultimately, right?
Oh, hopefully. No, I definitely think it's right. It's absolutely the right decision. There's no way. It'd be a miracle if you could actually run an event like that come August. To be perfectly honest, as you were saying, Chewy, just before we came on air, they talk about the fact that you probably get hefty fines if you leave the UK during the summer for no good reason, and say try to say the Team England WTC captain is not going to fly, just like telling some German policeman I'm playing for Sweden in the ETC doesn't get you out the jail cell.
Wait, what? There's a story there. No,
I've never heard this story.
No, go for it, mate.
He's probably listening as well, my good friend Per. This was ETC 2009. I think it was 2009. It was in Germany. It was England were playing. This one actually played for England. It's the first and only year I played for England, and we basically realised we were going to play Sweden for potentially the set. We're going to play Sweden on the Sunday morning, and whoever wins is going to go into the final round. Chance of winning the whole event. So we all went out and we met the Swedes, and we said, let's get the Swedes drunk. So we went out partying the Swedes, and we got them really, really drunk, and to the point that one of them got so drunk that, long story short, he ended up Nazi saluting a couple of bouncers and also the policeman that came to arrest him for Nazi saluting bouncers. So he was promptly thrown in the jail for the night. In the morning, the Swedish players all went down to the local police station to get him out. And the German policeman's like, why are we going to let him out? He goes, well, he's representing Sweden in an international sporting event. And they're like, what sporting event? So they explained what Warhammer was, and they were told they don't leave the police station in the next 5 seconds, they'll all be in jail.
Oh dear.
Sweden still. The crazy thing is, Sweden still beat England and still went on to win the ETC that year, despite one of their guys being in the local police station all Sunday there.
There's a lot to unpack from that story. I'm not going to lie, but weirdly, I don't want to. I'm going to leave it in a box and move the hell on.
That is a tactic that England have retired, by the way. That isn't something we still.
Is it, Tony? Is it? Yeah. So
I have seen the curfews. I can confirm.
What's the name of that tactic? That's what I want to know.
To answer, sorry again. No plans digitally. There might be something digital. There might be something online. We're going to talk to the captains and see what they want to do. Because running a full-blown WTC online would be a nightmare to start with. But there might be something, depending on what people want to do, what teams are willing to do, and stuff like that.
Okay, interesting. Well, do keep us updated. It'll be fun. But I think the correct decision ultimately, you guys got you're making the right call. And it's just a sad state of affairs. I think a lot of events are very hopeful that they're going to be running later in the year, and I think that they're being a bit keen personally. But we'll see how time does go on. Ultimately, good decision to be safe for the community and all of that. But that does mean there are people still practicing and playing games on TTS like we have been seeing in this Greekhammer event, which has been fun. And loads to unpack there. Tony, how's your team done over the past couple of weeks and couple of rounds?
We're doing really well, guys. You did so well. I'm so proud of you.
Have you learned a lot?
I think So I haven't picked a team of ETC veterans. So I picked a lot of guys who have played. So the way we do it is we have people play.
But wait, haven't you got Coe, Ramsey, Harris?
Oh yeah, but I would say I had 3 people who had been before, and I had 5 who hadn't, and then we swapped one around. So Robbo's now jumped in on the Necron list, but we've got Vic VJ playing Sisters for us. We've got Alex Petford playing Death Guard. We've got
Danny's in there as well.
Yeah, Danny's in there running his Admech. We'll just go through the list, go through that. And we had Tom Higginbottom was running the Harleys, but Marcus Hinson has swapped in to play it for the last couple of rounds. I mean, we're just trying to mix it up. The team has done okay, but I think a big thing for some of them is one, learning to read lists properly.
The enemies or their own?
Let's say that one of our veteran ETC players might have missed that Mortarion was in a list when he was doing his Matrix colours. So then when he got against Mortarion, he was like, "Oh, that's a problem."
I'm putting that game on Alex.
It's the WTC thing. It's the understanding that and certainly our approach to it is your matrix is live or die by it. You're the person who's practiced that list, has refined that list. You're staking it that list will get that score. So you have to go and get that score. And if rounds are really tight, if you bring in a 10-point, an ETC 10-point score less than you're meant to, it's massive. I think now the game has shifted so that lots of lists, so we're seeing lots of teams conform about like the first 4 lists and the other 4 are a bit of flavour. So things like everybody's got a custodies list because it plays well, it scores well, it's hard to deny secondaries. Everybody's running some sort of Death Guard list because it does the same thing. Everybody's running an AdMech list because it's quite shooty and it picks more open board. Those kind of trends mean that those lists score consistently. And our players weren't quite ready for that, have been a bit new to that. And it's just a bit of team development, which is really good, actually, because you do struggle in the UK normally. If everything was running, there wouldn't be a ton of team events. There wouldn't be a load of ETC scoring, 8v8 team events to play and to mess around with. So it's really useful. And we lost a round that I thought we should have won in, but 2 of our players said that they'd get 15 plus points and both got 5 or less. Wow. That kind of swing and they went, a bit of luck, a bit of bad play, a bit of the wrong choices. And then on top of that, 2 other players went, I was expecting a draw. Sorry, a draw, but again, I let it slip or I made the wrong choice or that person was lucky. And, you can, as a team, you can soak up maybe 1 game, possibly 2, where the dice absolutely fail someone. But ultimately, you've got to put your toys in the right places, haven't you? And part of that is knowing the lists that you're playing. And then the rest is knowing what everybody else is playing. So interesting stuff. But I'm not some sort of savage with the guys. If somebody makes a mistake, I'll just go, well, you made a mistake there because you said you get 15, you brought in 5. What was the problem? What went wrong? Did you get this wrong? Be honest with me about it, because I'm not going to lose my mind.
Are you not doing a team survey, captain, then, and basically threatening to have people expelled from the country?
But that doesn't really help you, though, right? Because if you don't help your players learn, then they're just going to stay the way they are, right? So especially in a practice event like this, where you're not taking it as seriously as you would at WTC, it's when you want to do.
Yeah, 100% nice. Same in any sport. As a player, if you underperform, the last thing you need is your captain and the rest of your team reminding you how badly you've underperformed. You're already kicking yourself. You're already kicking yourself badly enough as it is. People need to pick you up rather than let you sort of keep digging your own grave.
I mean, there are silly mistakes as well. I mean, things like people pick a secondary that ultimately that you go, I would never have picked that secondary in that matchup. Like picking a deploy scramblers in a game where the person's got the bodies to block out the zone and you're never going to kill them all. Just silly choices, and you go, where was the thinking there? And that's again, if you have the guys who've been like, oh yeah, I was playing TTS. It was late at the night. I've been at work all day. Head wasn't quite in the zone. And maybe it is slightly different than when you're at a tournament and you're hyped and you're prepped, or you're at the WTC and you're building up to it. Do you know what I mean? So, but again, it's good practice.
Yeah.
So we heard actually from the guests we've had on previously, and obviously also from Tom and Neil, and it's pretty much the point of this show that we're into the 6th week of now. That the preparation for the pairings, and you seem to say, seems to be the biggest focus of that team mix-up. Like, how do you go through that process, or do you just rely on all of the players' input?
So, with the first couple of rounds, what we did was we have a 5-color matrix. So we go red, amber, black, yellow, green in kind of 5-point brackets. We do have a purple for a swing where literally it's like if he goes first, he tanks me. If I go first, I tank him. And vice versa, actually, in some of these missions with certain armies and the secondaries they want to score, go in second. To start with, we had a couple of team calls where we chatted through colours and went through the list to make sure people knew what they were doing. But ultimately, after that, I said, I'm not going to do that anymore. You've got to come and practice the colours. And if you're stuck or you're not sure, I want you to ask people. We've not only got the group of 8 people who are playing in the chat. There's me. There's Josh Roberts, the ex-captain. There's a couple of other players that are involved in the squad that want to be involved. Sometimes they go. The guys who've got more free time sometimes go and put the thing on the table before they play the game. If that's when I suppose that's a bit cheaty as well, isn't it? Going, gentleman agreement. I'll play that Harlequin list for the first time on Friday, but I'll practice it on Wednesday and Thursday. I mean, you don't get that for a real tournament, but that it's for this is what we're looking at. It's just practice. It's for fun, and the guys need to learn how to put the colours in right and to know how their list works. And I think lots of them would tweak their lists again if we could tweak it for rounds, the last couple of rounds anyway.
Do you think that there's so much time to consider because of the TTS format and the fact that it's happening over days and weeks, like you said? Do you think that time to consider is really like being driven home, whereas like at a real event, you just wouldn't have the time. You'd have like an hour between the next round. You wouldn't really be mulling through your list. In that it would be more, you would decompress at the end of a tournament, right?
Yeah, I mean, at the actual WTC, I think one of the strengths of England is we're the boring home nation, as everybody always calls us, because we go home in the evenings. We don't go out on the events but we go through the matrix, not only for the team we're playing the next morning, but we go through the matrix for the team we're probably going to play in the afternoon based on who we think is going to win or lose. We do a matrix for every single team that goes to the event without fail, and we go through the colours and we check it. The captain, the vice captain, the coach will usually do that for the event, and we're just super hot on it because, like I said, if you've got half an hour because the round runs over, you need to get some lunch, somebody had to go out to the shop or whatever, and you've got to suddenly do, oh, quick, we're playing this team in this mission, you've got to have a baseline. You've got to know what you're talking about. So I think that side of it is massively important. And for anybody going for the first time with a team, you just got to know how your list works inherently in ninth, and then you can branch out and go to the experts on the other list and ask them if you're not sure.
And to be honest, you say you get called the boring team, but at the end of the day, how much money your players investing collectively over the year? Mm-hmm. You want a return to your investment in terms of time and money. And if that means that you only go out on like the Wednesday night and the Sunday night and get smashed instead of every night, well, that's the price you pay to be the best, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you know, to be honest with you, I mean, I'm late 30s now, but like we usually go on the Wednesday. The event starts on the Friday, Saturday, Sunday, isn't it? We usually have our social on the Wednesday and then recover with a game on the Thursday, and then Sunday, free for all again. But I don't get how if some of the last events, the ones from Serbia, where we were coming out and after we'd finished and we got home to the hotel and had a shower at 9:30, 10 o'clock, we've got to get some food. We've got to get 8 to 10 people somewhere into. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know how people are then going and doing any prep for the next day and having a meal. Or just...
It's because we're all too old now, Tony. I mean, that's the thing. Back when this started, Gaz Jones was 19 when the first.
Oh my word!
Jesus.
We were young enough to go out and drink all night and do pairings in the pub and get it half right.
Neil, I mean, you could say that Gaz has never been 19. Let's be honest.
Do you know the first time I played Gaz was 13 years old? First time I met him.
Yeah, you've told me.
And he was incredibly cocky, and he still is.
I mean, Tom, do you not think that the rest of the teams have everybody's up their game in terms of pairing and matrix and prep? I think since the years I've been going, it used to be that some teams would do everybody and some teams would do more, but now everybody does it. It really is a baseline.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you definitely notice it with the new teams as well. When teams come to WTC for the first time, they're not, no matter how good they are, they're not quite there in terms of how much time and effort they need to put into those pairings beforehand. And you see it in just the results they delivered, and they always say like, "Wow, we didn't realize how much how we got screwed in the pairings." And that's been the unifying thing for years now. The new teams say so. You want to get good, you got to put the effort in. Definitely.
Would you say one of the things that's would interest me is if let's say I wanted to go and create a set of pairings information for myself tomorrow. I guess Tony, you've already got a whole bunch of spreadsheets and information that you've practiced and developed over the years. I guess. Maybe that resource isn't available for new teams. They don't really have the workflow available to even understand. Would that be fair? Yeah,
so we played another team that a bit newer as prep before. We've been doing some prep TTS rounds and things. It was way back in January. But we shared with them the matrix of some of the other teams. Like we played a couple of rounds against Poland, so we just shared it and talked them through it because the captain found it really useful to have a look at that and see how we did it, what was our thinking, why did you put that? Because even just things like, why did you put that guy forward? Mm-hmm. And the other thing that we me and him talked at length was some players just, they need to lose a couple of games because they don't see how they lose a game. They don't see how that isn't a 20-0. And then they go and they play it, and either they go, oh yeah, I got that wrong, or they can then be going, oh, I know it was just dice. I was just unlucky. And you're like, oh, I don't think it was.
No such thing.
It's learning how to learn, right?
Yeah. And that brings you right around to team selection, how you pick the team, because ultimately it is 8 guys who have spent a whole year, loads of money, hundreds and thousands of pounds to get yourself out there and stay and prep and food and travel, whatever. And you have to pick the 7 guys on the team with you that you can trust, that you can trust are going to do the job, but will say the right thing, will do the right thing, know what they're doing. So
yeah, I mean, perfect example of that is Courtney Coe.
Yeah.
I mean, he rarely, if ever, wins tournaments, but he's so consistent.
Yes.
And he knows his army inside out, and he puts all the time and the effort in. So he knows every single matchup. So he is so consistent in what he says. What he says is going to happen will happen.
Courtney is the ETC player that's played. He's won the most medals. He's been at every ETC where England have podiumed. He's won the most medals. He's been the most times, and he gets the most stick from people who don't know him because they go, "Well, what's he won?"
Yeah,
and
but it doesn't matter. But it's just
ETC twice. And I've won third once.
But it's like Brett Armitage. Brett Armitage was the best first defender. Period. But he both played for Scotland and played for England. He would go first defender, and he would walk away over a 6-round tournament with 80-odd points. He walk away with a positive as first defender. Yeah. But everyone go, oh, but Brett Armitage never comes in more than the top 50% of a tournament. It's like, it doesn't matter. He's so consistently good that you can build a team around him because you know what you know that he will deliver for you every time.
I could talk about this actually now because obviously the WTC's been cancelled, but he was picked to play for Wales this year as well. And there's a reason why every team picks him up because he's so valuable in what he does.
Yeah,
it's actually insane. Yeah, he's really good pickup.
Yeah,
wow. Okay.
You don't have. You don't. It's not about the guys who get the 20 points. It's about the guys who know their army and know the matchups well enough that if they say they're going to get 8 or 12 or 13, that's what they're going to get. And as far as a captain, you can plan the rest of your pairings effectively around that.
Well, here's a question for you. I had 16 people apply for the team this year. It was more than that actually, but I did after our process we rattled it down to 16 plus me. I'm going to play or would have played. So, how many do you think out of the 16 want to be a 20-point big game prey list player?
About 3 or 4.
I would say maybe 4.
This is 2.
Really?
I'm overselling it. Yeah,
and that is a massive issue with how people build lists and how people play the game. In that, and it comes back to what I was saying about tournament play. Like if tournaments go to the old ITC, I picked you by a point, but I get 100 added to my score and I win. Okay, then people will build lists that are really defensive, and you'll go to WTC and it'll be a sea of 10-10s. And very few people want to take the risk with like an infiltrating Raven Guard list or a massive Horde list that it will do something different. Yes, it will have some really bad matchups, but when it gets its good matchups, it will win. And the last one we won, Nick Nandavati did that with his triple aberrant list. I was the Eldar player list, and Josh, the captain, was the Death Watch list. And between that, what we did was we leveraged our 3 best lists, in our opinion, into the best matchups, and the other 5 players had to bring in the remaining points. Yeah. And obviously, some rounds that didn't work. Some rounds I got a bad match, or Nick got a bad match, or Josh got a bad match. But that was generally how we did it. And then we had Manny on a ridiculous guard.
Manny can't play a list that big.
Yeah, but Manny's list was just it didn't lose easily, and it had the jank to win big.
Yeah,
and he added that on top, and it was the perfect combo.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that's an interesting point because we've had this conversation previously about, and you mentioned it earlier as well about scoring and how the different scoring systems affect the type of armies. And like you said, ITC, you didn't have to win big to win a tournament; you just had to win.
Yeah.
Win by a single point, but win every single game by a single point, and you could potentially win the tournament if it was a win-loss tournament and it was just enough rounds to find one winner. Whereas obviously, so we wind the clock back, a few years, 20-0 was the big deal, especially in Europe. And to win a 20-0 tournament, especially if you go to a 5-round tournament in the UK, there's 100 players, so you have to get 20-0s in all your games to win. So do you think that the way that the ITC, we'll say now the new GW missions, have changed the way that you win a game and therefore win a tournament? Do you think that's affected people's abilities to be those 20-0 star players?
I think yes, because everybody could set out not to lose, but then does your not lose list stop the other person from scoring?
Yeah.
Like take Death Guard. Death Guard have got bags of tricks, but you've got to bring an aggressive, particularly comped Death Guard list that stops me scoring my points.
Yeah.
Because your Death Guard list is probably slow. It'll have, even if you bring in some Dreadnoughts, Volkites and Cyclones or whatever, you still bring in limited shooting. You still bring in limited range. You still bring in limited speed. Some Whereas something like a Harlequins list, maybe you could push that into be a bigger scorer. You could be more aggressive with it. But again, you're limited with what you have sitting on your objectives. You can't stand in the open. There's so many lists that go cool. I can do 3 characters hiding, and that gets me while we stand, we fight. And I could do deploy scramblers really easy, and I'll probably get engaged because I'm fast. Oh, but I don't stop you scoring those objectives at the back of the board.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then I think we'll see. It's hard. I think it's hard to play something like, if you play a really extreme all-infiltrating Raven Guard list, Raven Guard Space Marines, for example, you probably can hit some bad matchups. You can go second and not be able to get your gimmick off. But there are some clever lists that get around that within the Greekhammer pack. So it's nice to see that. I think other teams have adapted to it quicker than my team has.
Fascinating. Honestly, I could just listen to a lot of that. There's loads I'd like to unpack from that. I think one of the things that I think is most interesting is how, like Neil was asking about, how the scoring changes that list composition and how that might even affect in singles in the future. And generally the meta as is, because obviously the game, I don't know, maybe is designed for single play based on their scoring system. So then changing it to some degree and then changing how thing works. Like Tori Robb says in the chat, fascinating. Absolutely.
I was going to say, if you think of like last year, the last year that we had tournaments and events and that we did the WTC, I mean that year the Caledonian Uprisings in January and the Cali in the summer, they were 20-0 ETC scoring, but then you had LGT and you had Glasshammer that would just win by a point and get you 100 big ITC ones. And you saw big players completely change their list to go with it. So it'd be really interesting to see how people come down as we go forward with events, as events start to creep back in, how they want to score it, if they adopt a universal system. Because I don't think, I could be wrong here, is there an ITC format for it at the moment where they've said they're going to do something?
Well, I listened to an interview actually on Friday that Reese did with the Alliance Open guys. You can go find on their YouTube page. It's like referee chat. I'm going to be on it next month. And Reese said a really interesting thing there that a lot of people I think have suspected. And he said that part of the agreement that they've got with GW, because GW obviously get heavily involved with all these FLG tournaments going across America, that's no shocker there, is that they're not going to produce ITC rules or an ITC FAQ, because they're not going to produce a set of rules that contradicts, that says play differently to GW, which I think a lot of people suspected, and it's very interesting for you to actually say it, because it's not been actually vocalized before. So you can actually go listen to that interview. It's a really good interview. Especially if you're an up-and-coming TO, listen to Reese, he talks about his tournaments and stuff. It's really interesting. But that little bit he said there, I think, speaks volumes. We know that Mike Brandt is obviously the guy pushing tournaments for GW now, and Mike is very much has very openly had this opinion for years, even before he became part of GW, that there's a certain way to play 40k a tournament to make it the best possible way. It's like a win-loss. He views it very much like a sports event, that it's designed for the pros to win, the best guys to win, and nothing but. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see GW saying to a lot of big events, you want our support, you want us to play ball with you, rather than maybe try to squash you. You got to go along with us,
and that would be their scoring system.
That would be running the GW scoring system, running the GW issues, not creating something that goes against the flow.
Okay.
And that, like I said, it's very fascinating that Reese said that. He did say he was part of their NDAs. They're not that frontline gaming are not going to produce alternative rules that challenge GW's rule set. They're not going to produce an FAQ either that says this is how you should play it over what GW's seen. Super fascinating. Now, what that means for us, WTC, I don't know, because it's no secret. Everyone knows that Tom Adriani is obviously one of the playtesting team, and he's been a long time involved with the FAQ team. And obviously Mike Brandt is a WTC player, and the GW has become very interested in WTC. We mentioned on their webpage quite a lot and stuff like that. But this conversation has not been had with us yet. And it'll be very, very interesting, because obviously our opinion, the WTC community has a very strong opinion on how team play 40k play works. As you said, Tony, it isn't the same to singles play. You can't just take singles play and apply it to team play. It doesn't work. It's not the best way to do it.
It's going to be
an interesting conversation coming up at some point, I believe. That conversation has not been had, and if it will be had and will be had, it'll be super interesting.
Just to be clear for people who might be new and already for some reason are this deep into this podcast, the scoring system obviously is like based on points variance, produces a 0 to 20 score. So for people listening at home, so however much you beat someone by, it gets converted into a 0 to 20 kind of score. With
for every 5 points, you gain 1 point of your opponent. So you both start on 10-10. If I beat Tom by 5 points, I get 11, Tom gets 9, so on and so forth, up to 20.
Mm-hmm. And my question for you, Tony, because you kind of brought the topic up. Thanks, Desert Sketch, for resubscribing, and hello everyone for tuning in. Is how do you think? And question obviously open to all three of you. How do you think what's the difference specifically? Do you think between the standardized scoring we're seeing in singles 40k right now and the variance-based scoring that you get for WTC? What do you think it would do generally to games?
Do you want to go first, Neil?
I can go first. I think that 20-0 creates a situation where it's about denying your opponents as much as scoring points. In the straight GW system, it's about maximizing your points as fast as possible. That's the most important thing. I mean, 20-0 is also just as equally important to try to deny your opponents. Because if I score 100 points against you, Rob, but you score 98 points, it's a 10-10. No, I don't. It's a 10-10. It's a draw. It doesn't matter.
In WTC, sorry. Yeah.
In WTC. Yeah. So 20-0 is about denying your opponent as much as scoring.
But then that takes us back to why some players love WTC, go every year, and not massive fans. They'll do singles events to get some practice and play new people, but they're not as massive fan because you can take an extreme or a comp list to play a certain way in WTC that just wouldn't do well in singles. A great example of that is a couple of years ago was Skark for Poland. We played them, and he was running Magnus and a Dominus Knight and 2 Chaos Knights, double guns. Yeah. And this list was getting 20 every round. And we played them. We were like, how is this guy getting 20 every round? That list is it's not great. It's got no scoring. And what he was doing was they were picking like Custodes and him to play everybody's Nurgle Demon list. And then he was just going, cool. So Magnus is casting on Ridiculous. He warp times forward, removes your invuln save, warp times, or runs away backwards. So it moves forward, does it, warp times backwards. And then all these knights remove that 30-man blob of plate bearers. Cool. How many turns are there? Oh, have you got 150 plate bearers? No. I've won the game. Yeah. and that list wouldn't win a singles event. That list wouldn't do well. But it was amazing in teams because they could aim it at exactly what it needed to do, that they knew everybody else was bringing in the meta, and it brought in big scores. So that come back to the Greekhammer event, we are struggling with lists like that. I mean, I actually pushed our Space Marine player off a Salamander's put forward list onto a Dark Angel successor and a Raven Guard successor list. One, to push him out of his comfort zone, but two, to go and be aggressive in pairings. And that's the only score that's come in our round against Canada so far, and he got a 20-0.
Yeah,
because he played a list that in his scoring matrix he predicted a 10-10 draw.
Now, can I ask?
I can imagine
were there any virtual water bottles involved in his game?
Lots
of. I mean, I can spawn some in every time he plays if you'd like. But
it's a flick tool, mate. That's what it's for.
Oh yeah, we did say we were going to have to do some sponsored merchandise with his face on, water bottles for the team. But that's the kind of thing where the threat, I asked him feedback on his game, and he said the threat of his potential list going forward and being really extreme scared the other guy to be more defensive, and so then he got a massive win. And I think that's the kind of thing that you're going to need to be to really win big events. You're going to have to take a risk because you're going to have to be able to get into somebody's DZ and take them off that objective. I mean, look at the Dark Angels Codex. There's an objective. There's a secondary objective where if you hold an objective all game, you get 15 points with an obsec unit.
Yeah. You just take your whole objective
crazy.
And move 8 DZ, yeah.
I mean, the last guy I played who had that the other week put 10 obsec Deathwing Terminators with Storm Shields on it and just sacrificed them all game and went, would it get to be 15?
Is it in the same tree as Oath of Moments as well, Tony? Because I haven't had a proper chance to look at it yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can't take both and then just walk in.
No, but you're just like...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it's still bad enough.
And I think that's it, is that people... You've got to find a way to stop your opponent scoring those secondaries. It's massive. And you've got to get over to their objectives. And whether it's you have infiltrators, you have shooting, you have deep strike, whatever it's going to be. So coming back to your scoring systems, if it becomes win-loss, then I think people will build lists that score them as many points as possible and just play that. You won't stop me scoring. If it sticks to a WCC 20-0, I think it's potentially more interesting in the singles market. Singles.
Hey.
Yeah.
Which of the two scoring systems do you think creates more variety and more dynamic lists?
The latter, the 20-0. Because do you know what? I'd love to bring more extreme lists. I've always have, because my style of list writing is, I like it that when we rock up to the table, you go, "What the hell is that?" By the time you figured it out, I've won the game, and I'm patting you on the shoulder and going, "Oh, never mind, buddy, you did really well. Thanks very much. See you later."
Yeah.
That's
Like I said, Tony Chu, the nicest man in the UK.
It also gives you something to play for, right? Because we could take the example of the Knights list that we were talking about with Skark earlier, but you can't take that to a singles event because it's built to play specific things. So you still have to take something that's like relatively capable and not just going to pray that it gets the same 5 matchup for 5 rounds. So you end up taking something that always gives you something to play for. Even if you're going to lose the game, it's like, well, maybe I get 5 points, maybe I get 4 points, and it might mean you're not going to win the tournament, but it'll push you up a ranking somewhat, as opposed to the other one where you end up in a situation where you're in a matchup that is incredibly hard for you, and it's just a case of, well, I've got nothing to play for here, I might as well have fun with it.
I mean, the third option we haven't discussed is you just go straight battle points, and you go, cool. If you just get 100, you get 100. But if you win 100 to 98, and you put against 98, that makes the event really interesting as well. You get people jumping up from all over the field. It is crazy when you have events like that. So there's merits to all three, and some players will love one over the other. Will say that I'm crazy for liking the ones I like, but
fascinating, honestly. I'm just loving listening, if I'm honest. All right, so this week...
should we actually get to the pairings?
Yeah, well, Tom, do you want to intro what pairings we're looking at?
So I am admin bot this time. So we are playing Overrun in this mission, and we've got England playing against Canada. We got Tony on, obviously, to help us go through these. So for England, you guys have got as you've already alluded to, a Raven Guards kind of in-your-face list with some Dark Angels MSU in there. So it's got like 20 Vanguard veterans, that kind of jazz. You've then got a Death Guard list with triple Contemptor. You've got an Orc list with 3 Death Dreads in it, and I specifically highlighted that for Rob. You've got a Breacher spam list with 2 planes. You've got a Custodes and Guards list, which is popping up all over the place, but this is a little bit different because you've gone for like Venatari, other things like Manticores that ignore line of sight. You've got the familiar triple Catan Necrons list. You've got a Harpoon list with no bikes and 3 squads of 10 players. And then you've got a Zephyrim Heavy Sisters list, which I actually really like. And then you're pairing into Canada, who is very similarly gone for a Zephyrim Heavy Sisters list. Another triple Catan list, but this one's got 3 Tesseract Arcs in it, which you do not have. They've got a double Dimicaron Nids list with a mini Gene Stealer Cult Patrol, specifically for that awful secondary. We've got a 4-plane Admech list with 32 Electro Priests. I think they're full bright Electro Priests, but I need to double check that. Then you've got a Terminator Wall Dark Angels list with 25 Terminators and double 5-man Interceptor squads. A Death Guard list with Slanesh Terminators. Guard and Custodes with lots of infantry, so you've got loads of infantry squads in the Guard, and then some Custodian Guard in the Custode side, just so you can drag Skari off the Drakari. And then you've got another Harlequins list with no bikes, but it also has no big bricks, which is what you guys have. And then you guys won the roll off the first to pick the first board. So your first defender was you put down the Breacher spam for Danny. Yeah. And then Canada attacked with the Garden Custodies with all the infantry we were talking about earlier, and the Terminator Wall Dark Angels. And you elected to take the Dark Angels and put it on table 7, which I believe is one of the 2 lighter boards. So what you've done there, you stuck Breaches down, given it a nice board, hoping you get some points. Now, I'm going to ask this now because it's not something... I could ask it in the next section, but I'm going to do it now because it's a little bit easier. The Garden Custodies pop up as an attacker twice here, and they get rejected twice. Was that a case of you not liking the matchup, or were you trying to save it for the last 4?
We had lots of people that thought they could play it, and we weren't. It scores well, but offensively, it's not as scary as other lists. So we felt that was one of their weaker lists, even though it's one of their more well-known players. So you can. We weren't sure if it was they were trying a concept with a better player to try and leverage it, or whether or not they thought that was a great list, but the Ridvan ended up on it. So where we're at there is, like, take Danny into the Dark Angels. That's not necessarily a great game, but he's got a chance on a more open board to do the damage, and also that the Dark Angels Terminator list, other people didn't want it. So we're trying to, when you put forwards, some people get bust. Some people get get a bad matchup and you go, sorry, mate, try and get 5 points. See you on the other side. And other people, you get them the ideal ones and they push. That one, I mean, the AdMech this round is predicted at great scores.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of my players are pessimistic this round because it's
imagine that on the England team.
The players. But I think we were optimistic our first round. We lost our second round where some of the optimism players I've mentioned already did come in with their scores, and I think that gave us a bit of a confidence knock. We went into the next round and we had some really close games, and it came down to a couple of people just winning big. That maybe again shouldn't have, that where they felt their opponent made a mistake and gave them points. So this one, I think people are cautious that it's people they've people they've heard of, people they've maybe even played before. So it all mixes in. Do you know what I mean? It's not a blank canvas where you just go. If it was just a generic team, don't know who they are. Here's how many points they are. Here's the list. I actually think we'd have a different matrix. But you go off the matrix. So our AdMech player says it isn't good for him. Under the bus you go. Thank you
and
very
then if it's
much.
wrong, well, they learn how to read matchups, and it's.
Can I ask a question quickly about because I was going to ask this when we were talking about the team composition of Team England earlier. Would you say that there being more well-known players in obviously air quotes, more well-known players is an advantage or a disadvantage in some ways, or is it a little bit of a little column A, little column B?
A bit of both. I think. Yeah. God, I don't know how people perceive us, really. I know we've got some infamous players and we've got some famous players and we've got some well-known players. I mean, I don't think anybody comes and goes, oh, no, it's Matt Robertson playing the Necrons, do you know what I mean? Or it's James Ramsey playing the Custodians. Yeah, but I suppose I'm on the inside. I don't know how people view it on our side. When it's somebody, I mean, a classic one, though, was I've got a note on here from our Death Guard player that he says, playing into Vessel's Death Guard, he said it'd be a yellow or a green if it wasn't Vessel. Because he's going to know all my tricks. So, I mean, it's definitely in some people's minds more than others.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. I mean, personally, I think this. I'm not sold that this is a good match for the AdMech, because though you're not going to kill all those Terminators and all those Blade Guards. There's not enough volume of fire in the
I
spam list.
This is a bad matchup.
Yeah.
That's tough, because if you give me 7 bad matchups and 1 good one, I am probably not going to pair you into the good one unless they agree. So at that point, you're taking the best thing that makes everybody else's matrix look good.
And you're taking Dark Angels out the pool, which is really, really good, because you know how broken that codex is. So we were talking about how you guys put down the breacher spam because you were able to get the lighter board. It looks like Canada did completely the opposite thing, and they put down the double Dimmacaron NIDS. With the mini G Steel Occult Patrol, and then putting this on table 1, which is one of the more heavy boards.
Well, I was going to say, clearly, we know that Chris, the Canadian captain, listens to our podcast or watches some play hockey, and clearly he's been hearing us talk about how double American NIDS is just the best attacking arm.
He also talks to Innis a lot.
Yeah, so he talks to Innis a lot as well. So clearly we know we should get these ideas. You can literally see
some copy-paste lists between Canada and Scotland in this pack. So it is what it is. You guys then put down the Death Guard and the Custodians, and my initial thought on this was they're both lists that are incredibly hard to charge for the Tyranids. I could be way off, but I'm going to suggest it anyway because it's what I do. Death Guard, it's difficult to charge because you end up going down the activations, and Custodians, they have access to a huge amount of defensive buffs. Is that about correct?
Yeah, and also they don't. Those lists don't need to fly over the board at you and then get countercharged and lose something. And it's not a trade game where if you fluff the trade, you lose a big unit. Do you know what I mean? Where like a Sisters list maybe is that. So our Death Guard's going to walk forward and score. Our Custodian's going to walk forward and score. It's on that NIDS list to come off and knock them off the points. So that was the thinking.
Yeah, I like it. So that one seems pretty straightforward. They end up taking the Death Guard off the table and then leaving you with the Custodies and the Venatari and the Guardless. And then they got to pick the next board as well. So they put down the Harlequin as second defender, which, as we talked about, is very MSU based. It doesn't have any really big bricks of players. Instead, it has it's 7 or 8 transports, isn't it? It's quite a lot of transports and then lots of little squads.
I just had it on my screen a second ago. I was just skimming through it.
Well, this is actually second defender, but this is the score.
This is 9 transports.
Yeah, there you go. So
nine units of 5 fusing pistols.
Yeah. So you guys put down the mirror in terms of your own Harlequins, and then you also put down the Raven Guard and the Dark Angels, and they ended up taking the Dark Angels, putting it on table 6. I mean, that was a game that you 20-0, right? Have you heard anything from Alex about how that game went?
So he got the first turn, which is
Okay,
good.
good. Yeah.
But he didn't. I think he swung everything to one flank, which made the Harlequin player go, "Oh crap, I'm going to redeploy." Over to the other flank, which then meant his secondaries didn't work because he picked banners, so he pushed them off the objectives he wanted to stand on, so he couldn't set his banners up first turn. He picked the what's it called? He picked assassinate. I think he picked assassinate. Oh no, mental interrogation. Sorry, the one we have to steal.
Hold the center.
Yeah, no, it's the one we have to get within 18 of a character.
Oh yeah, you steal the character.
It's a Warcraft one, so
yeah. So come and get within 18 of my Raven Guard army.
Yeah,
I mean, and it sounds a bit like all of the things I've complained about in my before, where you maybe haven't worried. And then Alex said he was a bit worried about the Alpha Strike a bit too much, so it was massively defensive. And Alex could just force his way through onto the secondaries, control the primaries, stop him scoring primary for 3 turns.
Yeah, it's also worth mentioning that this is Overrun, which is Dawn of War deployment, so it's quite wide. So when you push someone out to a side, it's quite a big distance. But also, it's a hold 2, hold 3 mission. So if you end up getting pinned in a corner, you are not getting primaries for a vast majority of the game. It's a huge swing.
And that Harley list doesn't want to drop 5 guys on foot in the open to hold them
Hell no.
to set transport on it. So it's struggling to put loads of offset bodies in the right places. I mean, our Harley list, I'm not sure if our Harley list is that optimal and that we've got no bikes and all in foot of troops, but it does play the missions really well, and it is good at holding objectives and being a bit more of a blunting list than others. So, yeah, I mean, we didn't expect a 20. We did still have that as a 10 because we thought that the Harleys could use the speed, could get around, could be annoying. The Fusion could roll hot on the Vanguard. Now they can't transhuman. But yeah, that came in big for us. So that's a big swing in a matrix that looks pretty close.
Yeah, and Def 2 as well. With your Def 2, you actually had the option of a second really light board, which kind of works quite well for your orcs. Although you didn't know you had that when you put this down because they were going to take table 6, and then they put down the Death Guard with the Slanesh Terminators and the Guard Custodians with lots of.
I would say but we thought that they were going to save their admech for the swing, and we put down something to take the second light table.
There it is.
To deny it from the admech player.
There's the big brain play, boys.
Yeah.
Do you want to explain that out to people?
So there's 2 tables that are more light than the other ones, and that aren't covered in woods that give you loads of -1s to hit. We ended up picking Courtney's one, which does have more woods in its line of sight, but he plays orcs, so he does not care. So the idea there is we know you have a shooty list and it wants line of sight. So now we're going to try and wrangle a matchup where it plays a list of ours on a board that's got not good line of sight, and you're going to massively suffering. And that is exactly how that worked out.
Taking a list that really wants a specific board and then leaving it for the bottom 4 is a little bit sus.
Yeah.
Not sure how I feel about that one.
If you need a board,
you can do,
but you really want to be going out early.
But this is the question: did they expect us to lead with Admech as a defender?
I don't know. Jim's in the chat. Jim might be able to tell us.
Did they expect us to lead with to follow it up with the orcs? I don't know. Yeah. I mean, even then. I'm not. These guys aren't predicting 20-0 wins because they got a good board, but it helps.
It does. It's every little advantage, mate, isn't it?
Yeah.
So with your orc list, I wanted to ask specifically the Death Dreads. What are they there to do, and why have you got them?
They're really good counter charge. They bring reliable shooting. They're tough to shift. They don't degrade. And I think you need a bit of. Sometimes orcs struggle in that you need some actual rend in combat, and orcs are really good at throwing tons of bodies with a power claw in, waving around, going "Yay, D3 damage from me!" And he obviously inevitably fluffs all his attacks. Whereas having a dread or two just pop over. Same with the rocket buggies. With the rocket, what are they called? The scrap jets. The mega trap scrap jets are really good. I think they're probably one of my favorite orc units, and the fact they can split up and bomb around the board is really annoying because between the mortal wounds on the attack, the double fight, the shooting with the rockets, they put out so much damage. And against lots of little marine units at toughness 4, toughness 5 with death skulls, they're just annoying.
Yeah.
So I think all of that together, plus the death skulls generous jankiness anyway, works really well.
Yeah. moving on from that one then, because obviously you're playing the Death Guard there. That'll be an interesting matchup to come back and look at later. You then put your third defender down, which is Harlequins. Now, at the start of this event, we actually saw a lot of people using Harlequins as first defender, but now they've shifted kind of down the levels to more like second, third, maybe. What do you think has caused that, and why are they now down that end?
What do you think the people are using the Harlequins differently?
They were using the Harlequins as first defender a lot, but a lot of those teams have now moved them down from first defender to third defender. If you didn't use them like that, that's fine, and we can move to something else. But I don't know.
I mean, so for us, third defender, the way that we approach pairings is your first round is you put a list forward, the opponent picks 2, you pick the answer for it, play. You do it again the second round. The third round is the clinch round, because whatever you pick, the other list gets turned down, but plays the list your opponent turned down on their side. So the Harlequins are the best all-comers. I think I've already said that. They can move fast, they can play mech, they can play horde, they can do psychics, they can play the Heidi game, they can zoom out and take objectives off you, give you a static list. So I think the reason you see them held back is, why do you want to put them out first? They can do anything, and you want to pick a heavy board. There's 6 heavy boards and 2 light ones, so your board isn't going to go disappearing. So really, by the time you get to that swing round, you can put them in and go, I don't care what it is, but whatever I think you're going to turn down, I'll pick the right option and hopefully guess it right, and that will give me an overall better team matchup. Because the first 2 put forwards and pairs in response obviously affects the round, but we've always felt that swing round is the clincher. You win or lose your rounds based on how those final 4 go, because it's a guess at who you're going to put as champion, or the last list, and it's the choice of which list you're going to refuse into what you think they're going to refuse. Yeah, that's where the matrix comes in. So a bit of player experience comes in, a bit of luck sometimes, where you got to guess it, and then a bit of skill as well.
No, that's perfect, mate. Yeah, and they offered up the 4-plane 32 priest Admech and the triple Catan with the triple Tesseract Arts for you, and you took the 4-plane 32 priest Admech list, which I'm assuming I think that's quite good for you.
It is Fulgurite priest, by the way.
It is Fulgurite,
so it's fantastic. If they were shooty priests, you wouldn't take that matchup.
No,
and I know the planes can fly over and turn off auras and things, but then you've flown the planes over.
And they die.
Hopefully. Yeah, because even with -1 damage, -1 to hit, you're hoping you've got enough offense in the rest of that Harley list, even without the bikes. Maybe, Chris thought that without the bikes, it's a bit of an easy prospect.
Well, I was just in Jim writing the chat there that his Admech player, the Admech player, is not happy. And he said, "What?
Have you got any fusion pistols in battle?" Is it
so clearly Chris wasn't communicating, or Chris saw something his Admech player didn't see.
Well, because that probably comes back to what we said. We thought, they haven't got their Admech player to take an open board.
Yeah, sorry, Jim. Already said it on the podcast. Chris will have heard it while he's watching hockey.
We've already called the pairings with the Admech sus, so now just giving them ammunition to lob at their captains. It's fine.
Well, it's okay. We agreed to share our matrix with each other afterwards, because Chris, we offered to do it before after the pairings, but he said, well, and to be fair, he's right. I don't want to give any of my players like false confidence or spook them if they think it's a good matchup and we also think it's good, or vice versa. If they think it's bad and we think it's bad, then they're like, oh, what have I missed? It's been great to do some of these with other teams. The Poland ones have always been hilarious, where like both players have put a red.
They both hate it.
How did you do that? How do you both think that your opponent's list 20-0s you in the same game?
At least it's going to be a learning experience there, mate. That sounds like it's going to learn something. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely fine. So you take that one, and then that obviously leaves the triple Catan, triple Tesseract Arc Vault to the hook matchup, which is whatever the Canadians then reject plays that, right? So bearing that in mind, the Canadians put down Garden Custodies with lots of infantry and the 2 Medusas. I actually had to look up what a Medusa does, because I wasn't that impressed when I saw it, to be honest, mate. I'm not entirely sure about it. I'm going to go
to Wikipedia and actually look it up now as well.
Thanks, Neil. That's a great plug there, mate. Brilliant. Well done.
We have to get it in every week, don't we?
Other GW-sponsored research facilities are available.
I'm sorry, Rob. Is Rob wanting to get GW sponsorship, or
me?
Yeah.
No, I think I found out today I might be banned from Warhammer World. So who knows?
How did you manage that? What did you do?
I'm
I mean,
just too cool. Like,
just
they
you.
can't have me in there. Like, the fucking sex appeal goes right
I
up.
spent far too much money in that store, so they can't make that
if
entire.
you keep putting your knob in the paints, Rob, that's going to happen. So, I mean, we've only just met today, but I feel like I meant that joke. So
What amazes me that it fits. That's what, like, so I've got to
Amazing
do
that
it.
it's-
I have a big job joke about yourself.
No,
So
that's
a
a
Medusa
small
is basically an indirect demolisher cannon.
Yeah.
MED6, strength 10, AP3, damage D6,
Hitting on 3s or 4s now.
4s.
Normally. Oh well, there's a problem.
guard.
obviously.
It's
Yeah.
guard. It's guard. It's not a tank commander.
Yeah, but it's forgeable bollocks. You never know, do you? So they put down that, and then you counter that with your own Custodians and Guard with a Venatari of a Manticores, as we've already said, and then the Triple Catan Necrons as well. Yeah, I think you've got that pinned, right? I think both those lists beat that pretty comfortably. What do you think?
We hope so. We thought we've got the Crons move over and get there and have the reach to do it, and the Custodians just to outscore it and be tanky, and we'll just stand there and go, cool, I'll get my points. Thanks very much.
Pretty much. And what did you anticipate them picking with that? Because obviously you have to then think about what's then going to go into whatever you reject. And were you happy with how the hook turned out?
So we nearly switched it, and I nearly wanted the I literally, as we were putting it down, I went, wait. And I went, no, just do it. Because I thought that they'd do exactly what they did. And I thought to myself, is it better to go our Custodians into their Custodians, our Crons into their Crons? But I think that their Crons has got a bit more shooting, and probably isn't ideal. I think that our Custodians then can tank a bit better. So I think that probably works out better for us.
Okay. Because normally you see things like Custodians into Triple Catan, you think like, but you've got slightly bigger bricks, which means you can soak up a bit better, right?
I think so. I mean, the Custodians just scores well, whatever version of the list it is. So I think with the way we've got it now, we're hopefully giving ourselves the best chance to stop them scoring and to get to get our faster elements across the board in both those matchups, really. Yeah,
that's fair. And then the champion matchup is between two lists that we haven't seen the entire pairings section so far, and that's Sisters and Sisters. Which, I mean, you've got double Zephyr. I like the Zephyr. I feel like they're very consistent in getting in where you don't have to constantly be spending Miracle Dice, unlike Repentia, right? Because if you've got hitting turn 2 and then you've got to bring some on turn 3, you're going to end up with one just like waiting. Whereas Zephyr give you some more freedom to actually kind of hit stuff, I guess, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, when it came to that last swing round, the Sisters had a negative game, and then the Harlequins had a positive and all didn't care. So we guessed that they wouldn't chuck that guard list in the hole because it didn't want certain terrain. It wouldn't want loads of things that will hamper the shooting. And we guessed that right. So the Sisters is probably a draw game. Maybe somebody edges it 11-9, 12-8, one way or the other.
Yeah, exactly.
With a bit of luck. But we'll take that, I think, because Sisters can be a really fearsome list. I mean, I think they started off probably turn of the year. They were a much more fearsome list in pairings. And they've gradually been knocked down in terms of effectiveness and resiliency by some of the newer books. And I think Dark Eldar will do that as well.
Sorry, you didn't decide this because of the fact that Chris has put himself as champion every round so far.
I mean, I've got to be honest with you, we didn't look into that. We just...
Chris has consistently been going as champion every round, if I remember. Or maybe he's done it 3 times, but he's very consistent right now about backing himself as the I'll take whoever.
I mean, it's not really taking whoever, though, is it? Because it depends on what happens with the rest of the pairings, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So overall, Tony, how do you feel like the pairings went for you guys? Is it one of those where you feel pretty confident, or is it we're going to do a couple of things differently, try and learn some matchups?
We thought we would come out of it with a narrow win. So having a score come in that we thought was a draw as a big win really helps. But we'll see. Because it's got I'm sure there is more than enough scope in those pairings for even some of the bad ones say that they're still going to get points, but does it just keep going and going and they get 20-0 in return? You know, that's always a danger. Do the draws all go against us? Do we get a series of 11-9 or 12-8, but they're all just slightly against us in that respect? Yeah. A good team, good players that have picked good list. Anything's possible really. So it's a bit of dice on the day, I'd hope. And hopefully nobody picking daft secondaries.
Would you say the edition is still new enough that everyone is still learning a lot?
I think, because I think normally, a lot of the guys who are involved in it with us at the moment are proper tournament heads. So if they were going to tournaments and getting their asses kicked every weekend, they'd have sorted it by now, or they'd be practicing more. And I think just having TTS to practice on makes it difficult because it could one of our players took 11 hours for his first game in the first round.
I heard about
I wonder who this.
I mean, he's not playing currently, and it's not because of that. And his second round game, he did much quicker, but he was so nervous about it because he hadn't done a team event for it. He had played TTS, but he was just being like, he took 45 minutes to measure out, zoning out an objective with a small squad. Do you know what I mean? Stuff like that. That like it's not malicious, but the spillover is it really kills the game, doesn't it? So I think then we've still had some slow games. We have, and I know that the refs have done a really good job of putting in ways to comp that and help. But equally, it's not nice to call a ref in, is it? That's always been. I'm sure Neil will tell you as head ref how many, whether it's a casual event or it's WTC. So afterwards, somebody will go and complain and bitch for the rest of the week about something that this person did this, but they didn't call a ref because they felt uncomfortable doing it.
100%. I mean, the amount of times people come to me, maybe even like a week after the tournament, and start going, "Oh, I want this." It's like, too late, buddy. I mean, no offense. You call us then and there, or you don't. People are like, "Oh, I don't want to create confrontation with opponents." It's like, well, if you piss off at your opponent, then what does it matter if he gets pissed off back at you? Yeah. If you weren't, but if you weren't pissed off at him, then there wasn't really a problem.
Fine. Yeah, you could just if you're not sure, sometimes you can call a ref and just work it out, and it's cool. Yeah,
exactly. And to call this out, I suppose been one of my big complaints about this event is that there's been a lot of people calling stuff out or complaining about stuff well after the fact. Mm-hmm. Like people going back, and this whole kind of like armchair general thing. People going back and rewatching close games, looking for mistakes, and then trying to call out the mistake way after the fact.
Well, our last round they had we had one game where the person wanted to do something but couldn't, so they left it there and they said, well, if I can't do that, and afterwards he realized he could have done something else, and it gave him a point extra on the score, so we just gave it him. And then another one of our players went, oh, but I could have done this in my game, and I went, oh, okay. And after the round I just said I didn't claim it, because even if it had I said, I think we have to give people a bit of a break, and I'd like to go at least one round. We're not having to give to the ref team about something. Yeah, we've had. Do you know what? If I was at the real life event, it's not. I'm playing the game, sucking up to people. It's just annoying, isn't it? Like you say, just get it right in your game, and that's a lesson learned. If I was the head ref, I'd equally just turn you. Well, then you both agreed it at the time. Tough.
Yeah, I think as well. There's something to be said. This might sound a little bit ego, just want to say it. There's something to be said with the WTC culture. Like, myself and Tom worked very hard for many years. Tom Adriani, to you've been in this chat at the start of the tournament. We say no one's gonna be a dick, or you're gonna get penalised. We have that chat every year. We've instilled that attitude over years that just play by intent, play the right way. Because both you and your opponent are top players. You know what you need to do. And don't have any bullshit, and that generally works at the WTC. But with this event, I mean, it's either because there's a lot of new people trying to prove something, whatnot. There's been a lot more of that dickiness happening, I think.
I think it's different when you're online, isn't it? Like anything, like posting, like abuse, like responding to people, like trolling. It's very different doing it face to face than it is doing it online. You just post a little message because it's really peed you off.
Yeah, and with TTS as well, there has to be some give and take, right? Because it's not like these boards are super easy to micromanage on, especially when talking about your player measuring out 45 minutes over a deep strike.
I don't want to disparage anybody. I don't want anyone to be upset. I genuinely don't care if we win or lose this round. It's good practice, and I'm watching my players under pressure against people that may beat them. And it's about if they beat them, how they take the loss, how they feed back to me. Because I could watch a game and get the feedback that's completely different to how the game went.
Yeah, and I think that's the right. That is the right attitude for CTS. Yeah, 100%. As Tom says, end of the day, we're playing for man dollies, and now we're playing for fake man dollies. It's virtual man dollies here. It's not perfect. It's far from perfect system. Just, like I say, treat it as a practice. Don't take it too seriously. Have a laugh, make new friends.
Yeah, which is why I don't want to play in any kind of online event for WTC replacement. I'd rather just play I'd play WTC, nothing, TTS WTC, because it's not the same and it's not worth the hassle.
Okay, interesting. How long until we know the results for this match is the real question. And Neil and Tom, time for a prediction, like we did last time. Let's see how you're going to do.
Well, it's obvious what I'm going to say.
Canada.
Because fuck you, England.
fuck you and your vaccine supplies. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, Rob, if you don't know, I'm actually Scottish at heart, so.
Yeah, oh, that's
Fucking
okay.
hell.
I understand. Like,
So yeah, Tony knew that was coming a mile off. It doesn't matter. It could be England versus Uzbekistan, and I'll still back Uzbekistan because it's anybody but England. That's my motto. Sorry,
Tom, do you feel
I
the
love you,
same?
Tony. I'm sorry.
Yeah, my mate's just trying to add me to a private Discord call by just telling me it exists. I'm going to go 109.51 to England. I'm going to back you guys.
Ooh, that's a big
Ooh.
score. All right, he's expecting some of our blacks to swing in a good direction. All right. Greens coming in instead of 10-10 draws. Like it. Nice.
Okay. Tony, do you want to throw a prediction in, or you're going to leave it?
If we could get something around 95 from the scores we're on now, I'd be really pleased. As it is, I think it'll be a narrow win one way or the other. It might even be a draw. Just because I think, certainly as well, I think the first score coming in 20 as well will make other players go, oh crap, I've really got to be on the ball with this one. So we'll see.
Okay. All right, fascinating. And this is round 4, so we've still got a round left after this. Neil, do you know who currently is doing well at the event?
Not England or Canada. I'm joking. You guys are just still podium potential. Still, it's actually quite tight.
How's the super team doing?
Give me a second. I'm going to pull
Who
it up.
did Canada play last round? Did they play Germany scouting?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
That was a
They got rolled.
Canada.
So
That
Germany
was a good win.
scouting are number 1. Hottest takes 2. They are playing each other right now.
Yeah, that's going to be really interesting.
Ukraine and Poland. Ukraine and Poland have already played. So it's Poland versus the French in the semi-croissants, and Ukraine versus the Polish B team, the Jackstraws. So it's quite close. I mean, obviously England are sitting at 8th, just behind Spain. So it's still quite tight. You know, there's only 2 teams on their 3 straight wins right now.
Where are hottest takes from, Neil?
Hottest takes are a TTS team. They are
Super team.
WTC players and TTS players from all over the world. So you've got Jim Vassell, who is Team Belgium's new hot boy. He just won the Warp Hammer tournament. He's won quite a few events. You've got Austin from Team Japan, who's also won a bunch of events. You've got the basic guys who've been doing really well at TTS events the past year, who have therefore got to know each other and went, hey, let's go over and just like kick these WTC people around. It's super interesting. But when you talk to them, it's super interesting because this is the first, for most of these guys, it's the first team tour they've had. And they've been getting a bit of coaching off Tommy Adriani to help them out, but it's been a big learning curve for them. And from what I gather, a very interesting one as well. Like you said, like I said earlier, like this whole idea of moving from single player mentality to team player mentality has been super big for them. But they are delivering. They're absolutely delivering. So I think next week we were going to talk about, I think it was the Ukraine matchup we were going to talk about. We haven't actually talked about those guys yet. But yeah.
Yeah,
Exciting.
Good.
It is.
I mean, the whole conversation about national teams versus super teams. And then Tony, not last year, year before, when it was the big poach of an American player in the team.
Hey, you're not talking about the big poach of the 2 Welsh players, mate. Hey, settle down.
I just think,
yeah. So
Welsh. I'm sorry. If we're going to talk about England poaching, let's get to the fact that half the team was played to Scotland previously, and then we'll get on to Wales.
Yeah, that's because you guys did Merc original.
Hey, Neil, you let it happen, so that's on you. Let's put it that way.
You're like the Spanish football team scout that comes back from South America.
Yeah.
That's how you work.
all these people are Italians and Spanish, honest.
Well, we had Nick the year we won it, and I still get some stick about that we didn't properly win it, and I'm like, I don't care. I mean, you could pick your world top 8 players that you think are going to play well for this. Nobody's going to hand you WTC. I've been going enough years to know it is so hard, and every team's out to be you. Everybody's going to play their best, we were lucky. We had some things go our way at the event. We had some rounds we scraped. Do you know what I mean?
Some penalties from the referees that helped you out.
Well, I mean, I don't even want to get into the penalties there because I feel like the only round we drew, we should have won, and there were shenanigans all across the board. Do you know what I mean? And I think I felt like that penalty was just in the end, and that was a bit of karma for some poor choices from other people at the event, which I just don't condone that kind of behaviour at Toy Soldiers. But you know,
But
and
you should have called a referee, Tony.
I believe we did in both cases. Trust me, don't worry about it.
I wasn't called. I can say that. I was called to one table, and it was both your guys' fault.
Oh, I mean, the one where a guy thought he had zoned out the opponent, and then his opponent went, "Cool, there's this massive gap because you didn't put anything here." Put his army down, and then his opponent went, "No, no, 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 no," and the decision was, actually, no, yeah, you should let him go and zone that out, even though he's done a shooting phase and he didn't kill as much as he wanted to. I disagree with that. That's correct. No. And the other one was completely on our player. He should have called the ref straight away, where his opponent timed out and he had an hour and a bit left, and they'd done a turn and a half.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
But that's both of them. He'd still spent 2 and a bit hours, or 2 odd hours of his time, and he'd done his own turn and a bit.
Was that Manny?
I'm talking about no players. I'm mentioning no names. Because
Manny was the one that I went to.
Yeah, but
he got to turn 2.
Yeah, that's the kind of and then I mean, referencing Manny's game, I'm sure Manny would say he was furious that he didn't and his game got ruled in the way that it did, that he didn't get to play time, that things didn't go his way, and I'm like, then you should have got a ref at the first point.
Because Manny, I remember that because Manny called me 10 minutes before the end, and it was like, dude, if this has happened how you said it's happened, why didn't you call me 2 hours ago?
Yeah. Well, I was at the other end playing an Amber Demon Horde list and getting 19-1. Yeah. Because I was like, just don't play me into an OBSEC Horde list on a multiple objective game. Oh look, Demon Horde. When the guy was really scared of my planes and hid in a ruin all game.
Were you playing Craft Worlds, Chewie?
I was playing the Planes of Doom.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the lesson to take away for people listening is, if you have a problem in the game, you ask a referee. You don't wait. Just ask the referees. We'll sort it.
The
longer you wait, the less it'll get sorted.
I tell you what, to go from that round, which was really hotly contested, was tough, was really temperamental, to playing the Australians in the last round, where it was literally, we could have been playing him at the pub and having a chat. Do you know what I mean? It was such a chill round, even though we were playing to win the WTC. That's how you wanted the round to go. Yeah. That's how you want every round to be a WTC. And actually, most of them are like that.
Yeah.
I've been 7 years now, so 42 games. I had one game that's been testy, and I had one game where my opponent got carded because whilst I was getting my army out of my bag, a ref saw him turn some dice over and gave him a yellow card. And I remember it was for moving a Riptide because it rolled a 1/1 for a jump move, even though I had all my army in reserve and wouldn't come on for another turn. Yeah. And I was like, oh, well, this has made the game really sour.
Very stupid of your opponents to do that.
Yeah, especially in front of a referee. Come on.
Well, the referee apparently was passing and just went, and like, when you come out in the rest, it's a bit like that meme of Nick Manavai, but it was for my opponent. I was like, what's going on? But,
to be honest, as a referee, without sounding malicious, they're the best moments. Is when you walk in behind people and you see them doing something, and you're just like, hello, hello, hello,
like rolling some kids.
And you just see it on their faces straight away. You know if it was genuine or not the minute their faces tell you straight away, and it's just like, yeah, no. Like, I can, even half a second, I know if that was an innocent mistake or not.
But you know what? Most of the games are really great. The environment's really good. People spend all that time and all that money to get there. They're there to go. And you don't win. There's no monetary prize at the end of it. It isn't the ITC. You aren't winning a big, massive, body-sized check for thousands of dollars.
Come on, what is a hug from me, Tom, and Ishik not sufficient?
It's worth more than $5 grand.
If at the end of the next one I've won and there's a choice between giving you a hug or taking a big check home,
to be fair, Neil is very sweaty, so I don't know.
One of them will be passed on to my wife and earn me brownie points. The other one, not so much.
Well, it's lovely. It's been lovely having you three on the show. Tony's been absolutely fascinating just listening to you talk about this. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been very much appreciated. There is an after pie. Thanks to Jim for donating £53 to the show, which is nice. Which has also let me shout out that he's doing an after show about this. So if you go check out Duplicity Paints. But it's really appreciated, Jim, mainly so you can get to a comedy number on the bar. Tony, is there any other place that we can hear you talk about 40k? Because I would like to listen to that more.
Do you know what? No.
You just have to get you on more often.
I haven't really ever. I probably should have done something in the lockdown period, but I haven't really. I just kind of sit in the background crying over Gene Steeler Cult, they're being crap, and mulling the days when my craft worlds will be good again. But
if
no,
you ever want to come on, my show, you're more than welcome. I'm live every day, so if we can fit it in, we'll get you on. If that sounds good to you.
That sounds great, guys.
Amazing. Neil, next week, Tom's. Sad news about WTC, but good decisions. And then we're still going to hear more. We can still obviously go onto the WTC website if you want to hear more information on what's happening at the moment. I don't hate Eldar. I just hate Eldar.
Where did that come from?
Valerie just by 2 years of 8th edition being triggered through most of that. I think
You
is
can't
the
even
issue.
spell Eldar, so
That's true.
I don't care about his opinion.
You know what? It's amazing how many people still go. They still look at the stats of a D cannon and go, "That's so broken, man!" And you're like, "It's the worst codex
Mate,
going."
They've got some kind of reticent trauma from 7th edition.
Oh, yeah,
That's
it's bad times.
I've got trauma from 8th edition. That's more recent. So, Neil, the website's still up, right? So we can still check that out and everything that's happening.
Exactly. It's all still up. All Tony Keeper for all the scores and stuff. Greekhammer Facebook page, everything else. So next week we'll probably look at either Ukraine versus Poland 2.
Yeah.
Or I was thinking Poland 1 versus our best mates, the Semi-Cruz Solons, the Crispies. So 2 interesting matches there, guys we've obviously talked about before. So it'd be interesting to see how their lists are changing and how they're doing.
Fascinating. All right, sweet. Well, thank you to you three then. It's very much appreciated. Any shout outs before we head out today?
No.
I've got none apart from obviously apart from my usual one. Get your asses onto Patreon, the Honest Wargamer, and put your money in the bank for Rob.
Throw that away.
Or
Tony,
else.
Throw that away. Tony, you got any shout outs? Anyone want to shout out?
The only thing I will say is, as the captain of Team England, we have there's a closed group called WTC Team England 40k, and obviously with WTC not happening this year, we're going to be drawing to a close our recruitment for 2021's event, and we're probably going to be looking to start recruiting again. So if you're interested in trying out for England and you're English, sorry Nick Nanavai, we would like you to apply. We'd like to put yourself forward. Hopefully as things start opening up, we'll do some events, some practice days, a chance to come and meet me and other members of the team that help put the setup every year. But it's all on Facebook. You can generally track me down if you're interested. Thanks.
Amazing. Yeah. We'll put the link. We'll make sure we put the link in both the podcast and the YouTube show notes, so people will be able to find the access there. So if you guys do look for that in the notes right now, you'll be able to find it. All right, sweet. Let's head out for the day.
Raid?
Yeah. I'm already looking. I think we'll go.
Neil is very eager. Look at him go.
I was listening early today when Rob almost forgot.
There's a whole bunch of reasons I almost forget most of the day, but it's always centered around the fact that I'm not that smart.
But that guy you raided this today, the Death Guard, the guy who's painted the Death Guard model, he bless him, he was so lovely.
He was lovely, really nice. They all are. So normally, I don't know if you've done this before, Tony, or you watch much Twitch, but you can basically everyone who's currently watching, we can send them and go and raid someone. So I just thought we're going to raid a bit of a 40k legend right now and go raid Jay from Mohawk Miniatures.
I'm down for that, yeah.
Because he's just a super lovely bloke. For everyone who's tuned in live, thanks very much. Thank you to my 3 guests, wonderful people, and you can hear more from them sometime soon. And thanks from me. See everyone soon. Have a nice day.